Welcome to the Renan Hoyi Silicon Valley Center's webinar series. If you're new to this center or to the webinar, the center started in 2020, and the mission is to become a knowledge hub on the topic or theme of management for the digital age. And it was more or less based on a frustration that the development is not going fast enough. I think most of us in the panel believe that not even business schools are maybe acting fast enough and updating the curriculum. So we decided to start offering a number of free webinars to disseminate our thoughts about how we think about the world and how management will evolve and has evolved due to specifically digital technologies. The focus today is on business transformation and why it will be increasingly required and how to manage a full enterprise transformation. This webinar is not going to answer all your questions, of course, but will provide a discussion on this theme, which will be instructed and taught more in depth in the course with the same name on September 28th. So all of us will be part of an online executive course that starts on September 28th if you're interested. And you will find the link to register to that course in the chat. So I sent that out earlier today. The agenda for this webinar is 45 minutes, and it will be structured like this. I'm going to do a short introduction, which will be followed by a fire chat with Janka Kringsklebe, who is the managing partner at CoShift that is dealing specifically on transformation of businesses. She was also working in a senior position at Bosch Power Tool and was behind their transformation. And then she's joined with Jochen Guser, the Director for Transformation, Agility and People Culture at Bosch Power Tool. And the fire chat will be led by Professor Bill Fisher, that I think most of us know for his work. And he's today teaching also at MIT and IMD in Switzerland. And then the fire chat will be followed by a Q&A where when all of you can come in with questions and be part of the discussion. So all that in only 45 minutes. So I will then start with giving you a small introduction. So why is business transformation the new black? And if you don't know the concept of black, it's sort of a new trend. Why is it a new trend? So since the birth of information technologies, we have discovered new models on how to manage the firm. The first time I found proof of this new model was when I studied Silicon Valley firms such as Google, Facebook, Tesla, and others over here, and actually moved from Europe just to study those new forms of management models. They all seem to believe in new principles such as speed that matters, as well as adaptability and constant innovation. And they were designed accordingly to be able to move fast and to constantly change and adapt to new opportunities. In fact, constant innovation was not enough for them. They searched for also disruptive innovation, and they wanted to lead the development and evolution, specifically driven by technology innovation. And they wanted to change the world and the overall game of different industries. So later I found that parts of this new model have been transferred over to other regions and continents. No wonder. Haier in China was and is maybe the most innovative case where an industrial firm in the 2000s took a decision to transform itself completely. From a company based on industrial age principle to a company based on what they themselves claim the Internet of Things principle. So a management model for the digital age. The transformation was necessary for long-term survival of the company and for all industrial companies, I would claim. And the company learned what worked and what didn't work over 20 years. of transformation. And the result is Randan-OE, a model that allows speed, adaptability, and constant innovation, both incremental and disruptive. Many companies like Hire have understood that they need to transform their business model. In some cases, it is disruptive transformation, as the company needs to move from an old hardware model into a new business model with hardware, software, and services. However, even if the company was born in the digital age, it still has to transform its business model every fifth year or so, as the technology and the impact from those technology change so rapidly. So this means that the industrial companies that were born in a different sort of era, they have to definitely transform, but even the companies that were born in a new era has to transform every fifth year or so as well. For this reason, business transformation has become the new black, which means a necessary skill that every company must master. After studying GE Appliances, together with Professor Fisher for almost 1 year, I decided to try to codify the principle of this new management model, Randan-OE, as an illustration of this new model and the transformation of a 100-year-old American company, GE Appliances, that used Randan-OE as the North Star for its own transformation. The findings absolutely amazed me and are all captured in my latest book, Leadership for a Digital World, The Transformation of GE Appliances. And you also got a link to that in the beginning of the chat. Briefly, GE Appliances transformation could be best described as a company that for a long time had felt a frustration with the industrial age way of leading the company. The company and the CEO were therefore open for a new leadership model, and Randan-OE became the North Star of their transformation journey. The result is dramatic, and the company changed from a zero growth company to a double-digit growth company in the same time as both employees and customers became happier and scored the company higher. Academically, I found proof on what many academics have been discussing for decades. As example, a strong mission, or what Randan-OE would call leading goals, actually works to drive motivation and performance and move the values from efficiency only to long-term growth with profitability. Further, empowerment of employees and a culture that focuses on true value creation, guided by what users need now and in the future, leads to constant innovation and increasingly new value creation. Finally, the changed role of managers, from being a manager to being a visionary team leader, as well as breaking the closed integrated corporate model into an open ecosystem for new constant value creation, were found both crucial in this new successful company. However, even if we start to understand the core pillars of this new model for managing the firm, the task to actually transform the business towards this new model is extremely challenging for most companies. The problem is that even if you, in the best of words, know in what direction you want to transform your company, that is, you have the principle clear for you, you might not be able to change the mindset nor the operational model fast enough. As every industry is constantly affected by new technologies and new players that identify new opportunities based on these new technologies, the incumbents need to become masters in frequently reinventing and transforming themselves. These companies need a framework, they need tool sets on how to best conduct frequent transformation of their businesses. And the problem is that it doesn't really exist, that kind of clear framework nor tool set today. This webinar is about business transformation and will provide you with some initial ideas presented by true experts such as Janke Queens-Klebe, Jochen Gerser, and Professor Bill Fisher. On September 28th, we will offer an online executive course that will go much more in depth on how you can master your company's more or less frequent transformation. And with that, I would like to leave the word and the stage to Professor Bill Fisher to start the fireshed. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sonika. That was quite a comprehensive summary, and it gives us a lot to start with. I'm wondering, since transformation is a journey, but as you said, managers have some idea of where they want to go to as a result of the journey. I'm wondering, I'd like to ask Janke and Jochen, what did you see? I mean, if you were asked today, on the basis of your transformation experiences, and both of you have broad transformation experiences, both within Bosch and then outside of Bosch, what would be the best piece of advice you could give someone who was considering transformation in an organization? I'm going to start with Janke, if I could.
Yeah, very good question, Bill. What is the best piece of advice I could give? Never start without purpose. Meaning, doing transformation is really hard, and often it is not fun, and sometimes it gets rough. It lasts long, but what would help so much is having or finding a strategical, important customer who require you to work differently, who requires different stuff from you, who requires a different collaboration from you, maybe also in half the time you're used to produce your product. So a customer that really challenges not only how you do your value add, but also how you collaborate, how your processes work, and how you manage your company.
Yeah, I like that. Because you're actually suggesting that you put a real face to the idea of outside in, and move from an abstract concept to something that's really quite real.
Yeah, exactly. Because it makes it is easier to argue the change, or to dedicate the change, because it is needed, because we have a so important strategical customer, and he wants us to become better, and this makes it so much easier.
Okay, great. I like easy. Jochen, what would you say?
I would like to start to reference a bit to what you initially stated, Bill, where you said that the CEO or the managers, they have a kind of a vision where the company should be. And I would argue they might have a clear tendency on where they want to see the company in 5 years, but they also really don't have a clue what are the exact steps to take. And I think the best experience or the best advice would be that you not only need to listen to your managers, but also to your associates. Because I think this feeling a lot of associates might have. They might have the feeling what we are doing today might not work in 5 years, and we need to come together to ideas how we can tackle the big challenges. I think this co-creation phase is very important. And secondly, I would say be bold, right? We really try to tackle the big topics, because along the journey you will find certain things that look like small steps, but the initial vision should be really bold to move the needle really big.
So are you suggesting that top down is not enough? That you need top down? It's important, but it's not going to take you to where you want to go.
Yeah, if you really want to find out and you really don't want to change the people, but you want to change the system, you really need the people. And you have usually, ideally, smart people within the company. So I don't want to talk about crowd intelligence only, right? But you have so many smart people, hopefully, in your company that you need to tackle the ideas also from their brains, what they think. They have the experience with the customer. They have the experience what's not working well. They have the experience actually what might be a solution. And then you really need to tap into that potential that's there.
Janke, do you see do you see top management willing, able, and enthusiastic about sharing, effectively sharing leadership in a transformation experience?
I think it's mandatory for them to share their enthusiasm about that, because otherwise it's not important. It is absolutely mandatory that the board members have first the common understanding about where they want to go and why. So why do we need to start a transformation and what's in it for our company? So this need for change, it's not because all this technology is hyped, or it's just a new trend and we need to follow. There must be a need, and the best way is to have a customer need. And then there's this common understanding. I had a customer with 3 board members, and we had a workshop, the first workshop, and I asked them, when you think on digital transformation, what comes to your mind? What is your understanding? And finally, it turned out that these 3 board members all had different pictures in their mind on digital transformation. And they were talking since almost a year about that. But they didn't have a common ground, no shared understanding on how to transform. So this is kind of mind-blowing. What would you expect from the employees when you have a board that not even have a common understanding? So this is these are two mandatory parts, and a transformation that could touch the very base of the company. You turn everything upside down. You touch the governance of the company, maybe also the business model. Sorry, that needs leadership. You can't do it without leadership.
Right. I want to ask Jochen about how, in your experience, Bosch prepared its workers to become involved, because you've told me about that, and I think it's worth sharing. But Annika, in the background, you have so much experience with GEA, so I don't want to keep you on the sideline. I'd like to jump in, okay? But I'll give you a chance to think about this, because we haven't spoken about this. But Jochen, could you talk about, given what Janka said about getting top management to agree on what they want to do, but also involving, as you said, middle management and the employees. How did that happen? How did that work at Bosch?
I mean, what we did in the Bosch Power Tools example was that we really tried to say, not come up with clear work pack. I mean, we asked, this is common theme since many years, that when you want to make projects successful, you try to involve people. However, I think until recently, or also many other projects that has been done in big corporations, are usually you define the clear vision, the clear work packages, the go live dates, who needs to do what, and then you ask for involvement. And then the people, of course, volunteer, are being voluntold to come, and you tell them what to do by when and how it should look like. But that's only possible if you really know how it's working, right? Where you want to go. And if you have a very complex system, which we are living in today's world, which is obvious now to everybody living on the planet, I guess, is that you need to get the involvement before you actually have the clear work packages, before you really know when to go live. So I think it's an honest, humble openness from the leadership is admired to say, we set out some basic principles, what we think should be included in whatever way we're working in the future. But we actually need to detail that out together with you. And that might create a bit confusion on both sides, on the leadership side to let go of power and delegate that power downwards. But it also creates confusion on the regular associates list, because they actually might fear that there's not a clear plan, and how can they then contribute to it. So I think it's a letting go on both sides and encourage each other to empower each other and to really come up with co-creation ideas.
Did you do anything so that workers, employees saw that this was for real and that they really were being invited in?
Well, the first thing is that you don't have the fancy PowerPoint slides ready before you invite them. The second thing is that you really need to be in the room with them and let the quietness sink in, that there is no clear 100% concrete plan. And that needs to sink in for a couple of times, couple of minutes, couple of hours, depends. And both sides need to, how should I say, let that sink in. And then you create an atmosphere where people realize, well, they really are asking for my opinion. They're really asking for what I have currently for pain points, because the pain points that are in the company might be very different, but they can be sometimes very easily, or not easily, but they need to be easily aligned on the common vision that we want to change the system.
Okay. Anna,
Just a second.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Just a second, Jochen. As he said, there's no clear path, because a path for transformation is made by walking, and therefore having a purpose, answering the why, is so important.
Okay.
So just to merge our comments together.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Great. Thank you. Annika, any thoughts from GEA about this? Was it top down? Did they get people involved?
Right. So you were there. So I find the GEA transformation extremely interesting, and we are not the only one. I mean, we have Edgar Schein, that is maybe the top professor researcher in the world on corporate culture, that was just amazed as well over what they did. But what I'm mostly impressed with and fascinated about is that coming back to Jacka, what you say, you know, what is the why? What should we navigate the ship towards? What is the end goal? They actually spend a year to understand. So they had Renan OE and the main principle of Renan OE as a framework. And then they took a year to understand what it meant and translated this into their own world, which I think is key. And it's more than just customer needs and customer value. It's a belief on how you will win in the future. And those are based on a number of principles. And for them, you cannot just take something from someone else, but you need to translate that over to your own environment. So that was like, if we say that transformation is learning, it's a journey, a long journey of learning. That was a step one of their learning journey. Learn, you know, why they needed to adopt certain new principles. One, for example, that changed a lot was zero distance to users. So not just to understand and understand customer value, but to try to get rid of any barriers between the company and the employees of the company and the users, and be able to iteratively, you know, create new value all the time. And based on that, they then understood pretty quickly that, okay, now we have to transform the way we structure our company, because we cannot create zero distance to user and be user focused. All of us, 100% of employees, managers, everyone in the company, if we don't change the way we work in the company. So that became then a very natural step too. But it all started with this more or less 1 year of learning, translating, be convinced, and then sort of start. And when they start, they knew what they wanted to do. So then they took layer by layer by layer, right? It's like an onion, you just peel it.
So let me first unmute myself. Let me, you know, one of the things I wanted to do with this conversation was to give our participants some sense of the richness of the examples that you've all gone through. And I think that's, you've done that very, very well, a teaser, right? This is the sort of conversations that you're going to hear in the forthcoming program. But one of the things that I'm interested in is, having said all of this, done the preparations, getting the empowerment, endorsing a purpose, peeling the onion. What are the big surprises? What are the biggest surprises that you've run across in terms of your transformation experiences? And I'll start with Janke again.
Okay, be aware that magic can happen. This is a big surprise, and it's not only okay, I said transformation can get rough and it can last long and it's really a challenge, but on the other hand, it's also fun. So, and one of my biggest surprises, leadership can emerge from everywhere, from unexpected places, as soon as you give people the room to act. So transformation can set the stage for individuals who were gifted trainers and who were good at leading others without having formal authority over them. And as soon as those new leadership talents emerge from these maybe small transformation projects or from communities of shared interest, you have exactly the skill set required for new business challenges. Leading others without having formal authority, rising to new challenges, just giving the intrinsic motivation a booster, and you can very much more easier adapt to new technologies if you give room for making this, for letting this magic happen.
Well, I love the idea of magic can happen from anywhere. That's terrific. Jochen, surprise.
Surprise. I think what I would like to reference a bit when we speak about surprises is a bit the way you, at the end of the day, you want to change the system, right? If you want to make bold transformation, and changing the system is like you really question everything that is not really a natural law. And that's quite a lot. So a lot of things that we have in organizations are man-made and can therefore, in my opinion, also be man-solved or women-solved, right? To be precise. And you need to find the change the system questions, and you gain that confidence that you can change the system by finding a lot of smaller things that are changes within the system. So you need to really encourage the people to start small while having the big thing to change the overall system. And I think these surprises that you see people gaining confidence to really ask the big questions is helping them a lot to really answer these questions about, change the system and not only changes within the system.
Two responses that really I actually didn't expect. That's a surprise in itself, right? One is magic can happen anywhere. The second is start small. This is great. Annika, how about you?
Yeah, I've been writing here. Why after you asked that question to come up with what I thought was the most exciting things. I think the most exciting things is that transformation is not static. It's not one thing. It's not one journey. It's not like a 2-3 years process, even if it take a long time. So what I learned from Hire, Rananoui, and GA case is that it's a dynamic process. They put annual new challenges annually, every year. So it's a constant improvement of the organization. So the whole focus has shifted from more or less. So I measured how they perceived, how much they focus on organizational innovation before in 2016 and in 2021. And it was a huge difference. So the whole focus on organizational innovation as one key innovation forum, and having this dynamic perspective of constantly improving your way of working towards certain principles. Again, having a framework, have a navigation, have a North Star, but constantly improve. So it's not a static process, not an end goal. It's infinite. It will never stop. And it's based on learning. It's a mindset of constant learning and improving. And then I think the other thing that amazed me was the time they took to understand the platform, the framework, the North Star, where to head, and to get the key people on board. They got the key stakeholders on board at the top level. And when they had that, it was so much easier for them to change.
You know, Janka mentioned purpose earlier, and one of the things that I've been surprised by is how critically important that is. And you speak about that when you talk about finding the North Star and preparing. And I think Jochen has spoken about how I think it took you ran road shows with senior management, put them in the room, so in your words, everyone could feel the quietness, you said, at the same time. And I think those are really critically important things that get lost in the shuffle. And finally, you know, what my experience is, it's difficult often, particularly in technical groups, to talk about business model innovation as a legitimate form of innovation. Difficult, but it's almost impossible to legitimize organizational innovation as a form of innovation. But the organizations that you've spoken about have all done that. So I think, you know, I think those really are great responses. Thank you all very, very much. Annika, in order to stay on time, I'm going to turn this over to you. But I hope that the participants see the wealth of experience that's on this screen right now, and we're just, you know, skimming the surface.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we got a first question. It's a very specific question about the RAN and OE and their way of working in ecosystem. So let's see if we can try to answer that. The question is, when looking at diagrams of the RAN and OE ecosystem, there seem to be the technological layer or platform layer to facilitate the methodology. What platforms or platform tech is being used today to facilitate collaboration across all of the teams and business units? So I can start trying to answer part of it. I cannot exactly tell you what kind of technology is behind it, but they definitely, they do build up ecosystem around platforms. And I think one of the main things is that you need to get the transaction costs down to have a lot of different parties to work together. You cannot have too high communication costs or transaction costs. Platform is one way where you can actually collaborate more easily. And what they do is that they decide so again, the condition for how they the leading goal that I mentioned before, what they are aiming for that year, and how who is going to do what in the ecosystem, and how they are going to distribute the profit if they get a profit. All that is updated on an annual basis, more or less, according to this dynamic philosophy that everything, they are reaching higher and higher and higher aims, and that this is done also on the platform. Anyone that would like to add anything regarding RAN and HUI ecosystem and platforms? Bill?
I think platforms are changing, just like when you spoke about transformation as being a learning journey. I think one of the things that we've seen with RAN and HUI, particularly in the ecosystem phase, is that the role of platforms is changing, evolving. And I think that my personal opinion is they're becoming more and more an influencer. They both are a mechanism for scalable learning, but they're also an influencer of the micro enterprises. So there's a two-way flow of energy and information from the micro enterprises to the platform, and then back. The other thing is there is a micro enterprise on its own, an independent micro enterprise that has developed software for the development and management of the ecosystems, and it's being used throughout the organization. I think of it as sort of a MRP system on steroids, but it looks at the entire ecosystem from distribution upstream to supply, and facilitates the activities, the linkages within a complex ecosystem. So they're doing two things. One is, I think they're allowing the platforms to develop, but there's also a software spine that allows them to make better decisions across ecosystems. It's not a casual type of activity.
No, and I think it's fair to say that they use all the technology you can think about. I mean, it's a cloud-based, it's blockchain, it's AI, machine learning, whatever, which one of those, or both. It's data analytics. You know, so in order for everything to be automatically managed, more or less. So we have another question. Understanding current state, in my opinion, is the most important step, which is usually lost on senior leadership. This is where you will unpack all of the process variation that typical leadership is unaware of. This has significant impact as you design the operational process for future state. This is from Marlene Estabrooks. Janka or Johan, do you want to answer that?
Just reading the question again. Yes, you need to be aware of where you start from. And so this is definitely a point the senior leadership is in. But you don't think that much on the processes in the first step. So it's more like Jochen also stated, you start with experimenting, with trying new things, doing things different and doing different things. And then we're starting with some pilot teams, just with a small impact, but you can learn a lot of them. You can learn where those teams run against walls, where a door should be, and by learning where hurdles occur, where barriers occur, you can start to remove those barriers step by step, and this is the kind of overall learning cycle. You need to learn in very short cycles to get more teams involved step by step, and then you can go on with the transformation. So it's not by designing everything from scratch. It's a journey. It's the path is made by walking, as I said, and so are the processes adapted by walking the transformation, as well as other governance topics or rules and other requirements.
I perhaps also want to bring a different perspective, and the person who asked the question, if I take it in the wrong side, then let me know. I observe usually a lot that senior management is actually too much in the details of today's problems. So I would argue actually the problem is not usually that they're not too detailed into the current state. They actually sometimes miss to have time to think, what is the vision where we want to be in 5 years? So because they're always in the ad hoc, always the crisis mode, always something to achieve within short term. And I think a bold transformation really needs a step aside and some vision, not clearly what needs to be done, but where do we want to be in 5 years? What is our and there I connected to what you also said, Janke, with the purpose, or you, Bill, as well, is purpose is, what is your existence right in 5 years? Why should you still be there? What is your value contribution to your ecosystem, to your stakeholders, to society, perhaps even?
I would agree, if I may comment on that. That is my experience as well from the GEA case, that Kevin Nolan, the CEO, he put the principles there after, understanding what it actually would mean for GEA, and he communicated this vision, and it became the North Star, but he didn't tell the details. In fact, he brought in the senior leadership to come up with solutions. So they had to come up with, okay, what does this mean if we are going for zero distance and the user is the boss, not the manager is the boss? How will we actually be able to do this? And they come up with solution, and thereby getting their involvement, their engagement, and that was sort of the drawing behind the first micro enterprises. So I think you're totally right that the CEO has to, provide the vision where we're heading. And I also agree that too many CEOs are too much involved in the current day-to-day business. I mean, they should have so great people beneath them that can manage that. So they themselves should be able to focus ahead and understand where are we going. So do we have any last questions? We have 2 minutes left. I don't see any more questions in the Q&A right now. If you want to join us, if you have taken any of our online courses before, they are short, they are around 12 hours. They are divided over a number of weeks, usually 3 weeks. With 4 hours each, which could be flexible. We could do 3 hours and 4 weeks if that is better for people. But it's a lot of discussion. It's about a lot of involvement, and we're going to intervene both teaching, from practical cases, theory, and of course a lot of discussion and learning from peers.
There is a question in the chat.
We have
not the Q&A, but the chat.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much, Isaac. Let's see. Okay, I need to skip that and go to the chat. Okay, we have one. What systematic framing do you know of that has the power to transcend paradigms? Over the past 20 years, we developed a purpose value frame that embedded in a social technological process in empowering the shift from silo system thinking and management to whole system thinking, leadership, and value co-creation. I hope there will be more. Okay, so what is the question here? What systematic framing do you know of that has the power to transcend paradigms? Anyone that would like to give a try? Janke?
I can take over here. I would just ask, how do you change habits? Because it's the same for a person as for an organization. The old habits, they are like the Empire in Star Wars. They always strike back. So in case you want to change those high habits that are subconscious, you don't have even to actively activate them. They are there. They are active. So you need to relearn those habits. And therefore, as I said, it's absolutely necessary to start a learning process so you can adapt step by step, learn. It's like running a marathon. You don't start from zero to a marathon within a day. You need to train, you need to practice, you need to work on your skills, and this is the same. You can use in organization to reframe those principles or those paradigms that were so important for so long. So you really need to work on those stuff. You need, and this is the reason why usual consulting doesn't work for transformation, because you will need to train your own muscles, your organizational muscles in this case.
And I would like to add to whoever wrote this, I mean, if I interpret this as a systemic perspective, I totally share that. I think that is the modern way of looking at it. But I would add other concepts. So I usually add dynamic capabilities. I add open innovation as crucial paradigm shifts as well. And also the human-centric organization that I add to the systemic perspective. So in my world, you need more than a systemic perspective as a framework. And I describe all those in my book. But with that, I think I need to thank the panel and the panelists, and thank you all participants. We hope that we will see some of you in the course on September 28th.